YouTube, today we're going head to head with the 16 Pro versus last year's 15 Pro and an emphasis on battery, if you catch where I'm going. But nevertheless, we need to take a look at what are the actual differences, because people always make it seem like iPhones are just the same phone over and over, but there are key differences that separate the incremental changes year after year, and the larger those years are in between your upgrades, the better. So like people coming from the iPhone 13, 12 series and 11 series, when they upgrade here into the 16, you guys are going to really feel the 16 Pro upgrade for sure. So the first difference is a change in weight. Yes, it's gotten heftier at 199 grams versus the 187 grams of last year's 15 Pro. Now, there's also a dimension change due to the larger screen. So those dimensions kind of play out this way. From a height perspective, the 16 Pro is 149.6 millimeters versus 146.6 millimeters of last year's height. Now, from a width perspective, it's 71.5 millimeters on the 16 Pro versus 70.6 millimeters on the 15 Pro. Now, as far as thickness goes, they're the exact same 8.3 millimeters. Okay, another thing that changed is screen size. We went from a 6.1 inch screen to a 6.3 inch screen. And not only that, the bezels got a lot thinner. Last year's model had a 1.71 millimeter bezel size. Now this year's model is rocking a 1.2 millimeter bezel size. For anyone who's into bezels, the 15 Pro has, you know, a little bit thicker bezel than the 16 Pro. Now, when you get into the platform of processing chip, you have an A17 Pro versus the A18 Pro. And as we know, every year it grows incrementally, but these are both on the 3nm architecture. This is first gen 3nm and this is second gen 3nm. This is more optimized and this is gonna give you a little bit more performance in comparison to this one. But they both are absolutely phenomenal, and they both are going to be able to handle Apple Intelligence as it is coming to both devices. But this one was built more for Apple Intelligence, and it's going to give you, in some areas, probably a slight edge, but I wouldn't say that it is anyway a deciding factor in between the two. And there will be a difference of performance that comes from those chips that goes, you know, with gaming and so forth and things like that. But we're going to talk about that when we get into battery life. Now, something else that's different in connectivity is going to be the Wi-Fi chip. Wi-Fi 7 versus Wi-Fi 6E. And honestly, if I did a test here on my Wi-Fi 7 modem, it would still be neck and neck. Wi-Fi 7 has yet to show its true potential. And also, Apple, there's no way to see if you are actually on Wi-Fi 7 unless I'm wrong. Somebody let me know. And then there's also this thing in the menu under Wi-Fi that says Wi-Fi 6E automatic mode or whatever. I don't know what that's about. Okay, and from a design perspective, not much is different, but there are some slight differences. Frosted glass back, the same. Titanium, aluminum siding, the same. Now the front panel obviously is different, 6.3 inches versus 6.1, but there's also the ceramic shield glass, which Apple claims to be 50% stronger on this generation ceramic shield glass versus last gen. And we're gonna see how that pans out, but the 15 Pro held up extremely well for me over this year, and I'm expecting the same or slightly better out of the 16 Pro. Now, another difference in between the two comes in the camera department, as we have a physical change. Two of them actually. The telephoto, which is only a 3x on the 15 Pro, is now a 5x telephoto on the 16 Pro, as well as the ultra wide, which is only a 12 megapixel on the 15 Pro, is now a 48 megapixel. And we can test that 48 megapixels really quick here in the studio. Let me open up the camera. I can use the new camera control button, which is another physical difference from a design perspective on the 16 Pro versus the 15 Pro. So if we tap that, we get into our photos. We go to the 0.5x, flip this around. Let me get them in hand. Cheese! I'm also gonna take a picture of a product, so that way we can compare not just a photo of a person. Boom. And boom. We'll see if there are any differences in between the two. Ultra wide video here on the 16 Pro ultra wide versus the 15 Pro ultra wide. Is there a difference? 48 megapixels versus 12 megapixels. Now let's talk about battery. As you know, the 15 Pro didn't get the best rating in battery life, and Apple has big claims for the 16 Pro this year. And let's start off with the charging. As you get up to 25 watt MagSafe charging on the latest 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max, while you're stuck at 15 watts of MagSafe wireless charging on the 15 Pro. If that matters to you, that could be a separating factor in between the two. Now, it is proprietary right now on Apple's MagSafe Puck, but we're gonna see that expand possibly, but as of right now, that's how it's rolling. Now, battery sizes have changed as well, as we have a 3,582 milliamp hour battery versus the 3,274 milliamp hour battery of the 15 Pro. So not only is there a physical battery change, there's also the change in that A18 Pro chip versus the A17 Pro chip. And usually the later the chip, the more they optimize it and squeeze more battery life and performance out of that latest model. And that's where you're gonna see the significant change or jump from last year's 15 Pro into the 16 Pro. Let's kind of talk about some of the things or the results that we've seen. All right, now, there's been some battery tests going on around in between these two, and Apple claimed a 4-hour difference, and Apple has delivered. It's literally landed around that 4-hour of increased battery life in comparison to the 15 Pro, and that is huge. Now, again, battery life is subjective to the user and how you use your device. Gaming pulls more battery than just browsing the web or flipping through social media or doing something light and chill, if you understand. So how you mix those and the timing on this and that determines your overall battery life, which is why when you kind of like average it down, it's probably gonna come around to about 2 hours or so. It depends, but in certain things, if you're just doing that or things that are similar to that, you're gonna get that 4 hour to 3 and some half hours of more of, battery life. So it's really subjective to you, the user, but there is a significant increase in expected and resulted battery life between the 16 Pro and the 15 Pro. And the same kind of went with the 16 Pro Max versus the 15 Pro Max. There's a nice gap and upgrade in battery life. So again, these are incremental refinement years, but these refinements add to the overall user experience, which kind of justify the device, especially if you're coming from older devices. Again, iPhone 13, 12, 11, you're gonna really feel the upgrade going into something like the 16 Pro versus someone who's coming from like a 14 Pro or a 15 Pro. You're gonna feel less of a difference, but some of those key differences and changes and upgrades actually equal the upgrade that you feel or that you are seeking or what wasn't apparent in your previous device. So that's just kind of how you got to weigh everything when you're comparing such close years versus like when you get wider years apart is obvious. But the closer years, you got to really think about quality of life and what adds to that or not. Now, it's really hard to weigh some other things into play because there is no Apple Intelligence. We don't know if there's things that are more Apple Intelligent on this device in comparison to this device as far as the user experience and so forth and so on. But all in all, from a user experience perspective, especially with that battery life change, the 16 Pro is coming out ahead of the 15 Pro and it's definitely looking promising for those of you who are first-time buyers. 16 Pro easily suggested over the 15 Pro. Those of you who are trying to upgrade from a 15 Pro to a 16 Pro, I don't know if I can necessarily say, hey, go out and do that because, that's year over year. But there are people out there who do it year over year just to stay ahead of technology and on the edge of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're coming from a 14 Pro going into the 16 Pro, you're gonna feel it a lot more than someone coming from a 15 Pro for sure. And if you're coming from an iPhone 13 Pro or older, you're definitely gonna feel the upgrade jumping into the 16 Pro. And that's just about how it goes.
I rise and I wake and I gotta go get it. I'm making my bed and it's straight to the digits.
And for some people, maybe camera control might be the thing. For me, it's still growing on me. It's still growing.
No cup of jokers, this is acidic, so I take a shot with the lemon and ginger. Look in the mirror like, yeah, I'm that. Look in the mirror like, I'm fitted. Looking outside like the world is all mine. Look in the mirror like, go get it. I gotta get to the scene, I gotta get to the bag now. I can't be chasing on these. They getting they feeling and dragged down. That's why they just crash out.